My name's Jeff Parker. I grew up here in Utah and was an undergrad here at BYU. I got called on a mission to serve in Russia, and after getting back and having studied a language, I got interested in linguistics and started my professional path in linguistics. I actually met my wife here at BYU. We met over Christmas break, and I found out that she was taking an Introduction to Linguistics class, and I was as well, so I transferred into her section, and that certainly didn't hurt. After our undergrads here, we went to Ohio State, where I did graduate work in Russian and Slavic and linguistics, kind of all together in different ways. And I've been happy to be here as a faculty member in linguistics since the fall of 2016. I have 4 kids. I love doing things outdoors, and one of my favorite personal random hobbies is I like making very large soap bubbles. At the core, I'm a morphologist, so I'm interested in word structure, how words are built, how words relate to each other, and this can vary quite a bit across languages. So I look at the inflectional systems of a variety of different languages. Inflection is where we take one word with the same general meaning and we create another form that has different grammatical properties. So just something as simple as a singular and a plural of the same word. In English is kind of boring because we really only have a couple forms, right? But at the same time, there's still some kind of complex things going on. Not all words in English have a plural just ending in S. Some, like syllabus, syllabi, have different patterns, or some, like fish, don't do anything to form a plural. And then when you get into some other languages, this can be even more interesting and more complex. For example, every noun in Russian doesn't just have singulars and plurals, but there's 6 different cases that a word can appear in the singular and 6 different cases in the plural. So 12 possible forms for every noun. And then other languages get even more crazy. So one thing I do is look across languages at the way in which different word forms interact, and the kind of the complexity that creates in the structure of the language. So one of the reasons I think linguistics is particularly interesting and deserves to be studied and better understood is that linguistics is so embedded in everything we do, because all of what we know, what we learn, how we interact, how we grow as a society, as a people, is all influenced by and very much embedded in communication, right? And our language is how we communicate. And importantly, in that, there's no way to extract ourselves from the language we use. How we say things, what we say, what we choose to say, how we choose to say it, is all part of who we are, but how we express that is through linguistics. And linguistics is a study of how those things interact, what they are, and how we perceive things or how we express things, and the very choices we make, the linguistic choices we make. When I was at the Linguistic Institute in Michigan in 2013, I think, I learned one of the most interesting things that kind of enlarged my worldview about linguistics, and that's that some communities practice this thing called linguistic exogamy. So there's multiple languages spoken in the community, and who you marry is actually conditioned, or who you're allowed to marry depends on what native language you speak. So for example, in a family, a mother and a father will speak different languages, and their children will on their own spontaneously choose which language to speak natively, but they won't ever speak the other languages in the community, even though they understand them. And then as they grow up, it's a social taboo to marry somebody with the same native language as yourself. So this is just a really drastic example, but I think a very interesting one of how our language affects the way we interact with other people and the way we express our own identities. Or in this community, what language you choose to speak actually determines who you're allowed to marry, and in a lot of subtle ways, the way we speak and the way we interact with other people, the linguistic structures we use, actually affects our relationships with other people on a much more everyday and mundane level, with that being one of a kind of a really brilliant example of how far it can go in affecting our relationships with other people.